Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hi if you're new, and welcome to my February reading wrap up. It's not quite the end of the month yet. I've got some books to take back to the library like I did last month. So if I read anything else, I'll tag it on to the end of the video. But I'm going to talk you through what I've read so far. It's been a weird reading month so far, okay? We started off with Learn My Lesson by Katie Robert. This was a follow-on to, I think it was Desperate Measures. And I like this. This is basically like a sexy Disney story retelling. And whereas Hades is the ruler of the underworld, in these books the underworld is basically a club, but he's almost like a mafia boss. But the different Disney characters from different stories, they overlap. So this one, it was Hades based with Meg and Hercules. They were all together doing things, or in pairs or whatever, and that was lovely. But we had Tink and Hook, we had Jafar and Jasmine, and I like all of this drop in and mention from the different characters, and then the next book will be 2 other characters. I like this. I like the smut. I like the relationship between the 3. I like the fact as well that we saw a different side to Hades. You know, there's more depth to that character. He's not just a complete baddie. Yeah, it was just, it's a smutty read, but there's always a storyline in there too, and I enjoyed it. Then I read 2 really short books by audiobook, and these were the books 2 and 3 in the Singing Hills cycle by Nevo, and that was When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain and Into the Riverlands. I have got my notes here so I don't forget any titles. So this cycle, this series if you like, is based on storytelling and its importance really, and how you've got the characters that are going out and they're hearing stories almost basically from talking fantastical animals, and it's just a bit different. It's short, it's quirky, I enjoyed it. So then I've gone on to the physical books. The first one, and you know, I don't want to call it a disappointment, but for me it was a 5-star anticipated. And I really wish that I stopped anticipating 5-star books because they very rarely come out as a 5-star. But it was The Museum of Ordinary People by Mike Gale. Now, I read his book Mr. Commitment when I was late teens, early 20s, and I loved it. And as soon as I saw this and I read on NetGalley about the story itself, saw the author, I'm like, I'm going to love this book, it's perfect. And it's about exactly what it says. There's a museum of ordinary people and their ordinary things, and it's things that you might have been passed down or that you found that you know has got some kind of emotional connection. So you don't want to just bin it, but you maybe just can't store it yourselves. And this is a museum that has got like people's workbenches, their wedding dresses, their correspondence and photos that people have just come across or has been passed down to them. They don't want, if you like, and this museum stores it and you can go around and have a look. I love the concept. I would go and visit a museum like this. It was really sweet. You knew that inevitably there was a romance that was going to blossom in this as well. I enjoyed the romance. Yes, it was predictable. I don't have a problem with that. I think that was fine. But it just fell a little bit flat for me. It was good, but it wasn't great. And there were bits that I liked, so sort of like, you know, that sometimes digging up memories from the past isn't necessarily the right thing to do, and maybe things are meant to be forgotten rather than everything being light and fluffy. And I just thought that was really good. You know, it's one of those books that doesn't give you all this fairy tale ending. It's an honest ending. Life kind of sucks a little bit, but let's be hopeful and let's see what happens. And it was good. It just wasn't great, but it was fine. Then, oh no. I say oh no. Again, this was like really highly anticipated for me, again on NetGalley, and when I saw it was in the library, I was like, let's get a physical copy. And that was The Secret of Splint Hall by Katie Cotton. This was a middle grade. We join, is it Isabel and Flora? Yes. Who, the house basically was bombed in the war, so they come out to live with their mum and their aunt at the aunt's house with her grumpy husband. And stuff was going to happen. We were waiting to find out what the secret of Splint Hall actually was. Unfortunately, there was no hint of the secret, really, for about the first 150 pages. And that is my biggest problem with the book. It wasn't the story itself, because I like the relationship between the characters, I like the character development. You've got some quieter people that are finding their confidence, there's friendship building. I like the story, but it was too much build, and I had completely lost interest. I found it really hard to pick this up when I was hitting maybe the 80+ point page wise, because I was like, well, I'm getting a bit fed up now waiting to find out what the secret is. Then we sort of had this build up to this big event for about another 50-60 pages, this big event being 6 to 7 pages long. So I'm like, hang on a minute, I've read over 200 pages here for the tiniest big excitement. And it just frustrated me, and it's such a shame. I wish basically the first half of the book had been cut, drag out the second bit, because the second bit was quite interesting. So yeah, it was a disappointing read, and if I'd just read the second half it would have been a lot better. But anyway, we continue. Another one that, again, I'd anticipated. It's been so frustrating this month, and that is The Haunting Season, Ghostly Tales for Long Nights by various authors. And I believe this is 8 different stories. Yes, 8 different ghostly stories. This was a mixed bag. There were stories that I really liked. There were some I read and I was like, what on earth was that about? But it was, I suppose it was kind of a bit of a chilled thing. It's the end of the evening, reading a 30-page ghosty story. But they just weren't wow. So, I don't know. I was beginning to lose hope in the reading front at that point. So then I picked up what was one of my most anticipated books. We know exactly where this is going, don't we? It wasn't going to be very good, was it? And that was Lady Cottington's Pressed Fairy book. If you'd have seen my haul, one of my last hauls, you would have seen me pick this up and how excited I was, because it was like 20p and it squished fairies with diary entries, and I'm like, this is going to be so much fun. And it turned into basically suggested fairy rape. Well, no, the fairies didn't commit the rape. They basically made it so that's what happened to somebody, or at least sexual things that they didn't want to happen. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. We've gone from this girl shutting fairies in books and making up names and stories for them, and that's all great, to this just got really dark really quickly. And I mean like the flick of a page. And I'm reading it and I'm thinking, what am I reading here? What on earth is this about? Again, this one should have been cut, okay, before the nastiness happened. It was going so well and it was great, and this just went too dark, and I didn't care for what happened in it, really. So I thought, I know, I would just have a chill Monday evening. I think it was Monday evening, where I read a couple of graphic novels. Now this was all right, okay. I went with Paper Girls and Low. I started with Paper Girls, and do you know what? I didn't mind this. I like the colours and the graphics. I like the storyline. It has ended on a cliffhanger. So in this book, basically, we join Paper Girls, who are out doing their thing, and something happens to the world around them. And it's a little bit like, is this an alien invasion? Is this an apocalypse? Are there monsters around? What's going on? And they're going out, things happen to them. They meet people and things. And it was really fast paced. It was full of drama, and I enjoyed that. I didn't love it. There was a language that shouldn't have been used in it. As I said, we've ended on this cliffhanger, and I'm gonna have to pick up book 2. So I suppose on that basis, it was good. But again, it just wasn't wow. So then I had higher hopes for Low. I didn't like Low. So this is basically, it's in the future, and the sun's premature expansion has irradiated Earth, sending humanity to the lowest depths of the sea, hidden with radiation-shielded cities, while probes scour the universe for inhabitable worlds. And we join this mum who is so positive and hopeful, and that's the recurring theme throughout the book. we've met the dad, there's a couple of daughters, there's a son, people get kidnapped, people get killed, there's some weird sea creatures, monsters type thing. It's dark and I had no idea what was going on for part of it, and I was just gutted. Again, it was an anticipated one and it just didn't do it for me. So hopefully we will get another book read this month that I'm really enjoying, and I have got a couple on the go that I am enjoying, so it's just, will I finish them in time to include them in the wrap up? We shall see. So if this is the end of the video, I'll love you and leave you and see you in the next one. Otherwise, I'll see you in a matter of seconds. So I read 3 more books, so I'm going to tell you about them. The first 2, however, I have done a reading vlog for, and that is coming up. I believe I've scheduled it for Friday afternoon, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about those 2 books now. But the first one is The Whispering Muse by Laura Purcell. This is a gothic thriller set in a theatre, and we join Jenny, who's been employed by the theatre owner's wife to basically dress but also spy on the leading lady. And there's more going on in that theatre. There is a lot of unrest. There are potentially spirits that are going on. There's so many unreliable folk, shall we say. You don't know who to trust, and it's so fast-paced. It's non-stop action. If you like gothic thrillers, I would seriously consider picking this one up. Then earlier today, I finished Mame by Jessica George. This is a book about Maddie, Mame, who is basically trying to find her way in the world. She has been brought up basically living her life for a relative, and she's about to now try and experience life, going out, reinventing herself, new job, boyfriends, things like that. But it's actually quite a heavy book. Grief is quite a central theme. We cover racism, depression, anxiety, panic attacks. There's relationship building, relationship breaking, and it's a very emotional read actually. If you actually do connect with one of the situations that Maddie finds herself with, I think it's going to hit you pretty hard. But it's a very honestly written book in that I think it's very realistic, the feelings and the thoughts that somebody would experience. So again, it was a very good read that I would recommend. The last book I read, and it took me so long to read it, but that's only because I've been reading it on my Kindle before I go to bed. I just read a chapter or 2, and that is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. And this was such a strange book, and I am so unsure of where I feel I sit on the rating front, because basically Finlay Donovan, she is an author of murder books, and she gets overheard doing this pitch to her agent, and she's basically overheard incorrectly, and somebody thinks that she's a hit woman, and they try and employ her to fulfill that role. It's very funny, it's very amusing. I think what I struggle with, it is so ridiculously far-fetched, but that doesn't matter. It is just really quite funny. The situation she finds herself in, you were just like, oh my goodness, this poor woman, what is she going to come up against next? So there's 3 books in a series currently. I think I am going to continue. I think it was that good that I would definitely pick up the next one. But it was just very, very strange. I've never read anything quite like it. So again, that covered some quite serious topics. You've got Finlay herself, who's split from her husband, who's, you know, trying to start again, wants to take the kids. So there's some emotional backstory going on, as well as all these ridiculously fun things that seemed, well, it's fun to read, but some quite stressful events for Finlay. So anyway, if you've made it to the end of the video, why don't you leave me an emoji that indicates the weather that it is with wherever you are right now. For me, it's just very cold outside. But yeah, I think it's been a pretty mixed reading month. So roll on March, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!